Hey guys, Bolt here, and welcome to the summary of Nancy Drew Mystery Number 14. Oh, hold on. Wrong side of the thing. Danger by Design. Getting used to this. It's a mirrored image, so. Anyways, we are going to quickly go over this. It's a pretty quick one. Let me go ahead and find an image so I can set it up. So basically, Nancy's invited out to be an intern slash a secretary for a upcoming designer, Manette, who is kind of like a weird fashion designer. Where she wears a mask. One of her biggest things is she says rude when it's something she likes. It's kind of like how if you're a Miraculous fan, you know how Audrey, the mother of Chloe, is ridiculous when it's bad. It's kind of like her, but in a positive way. But basically, you go there. There's another secretary who kind of gives you the rundown, gives you things to do. For the most part, everything's fine. And then, boom, 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 guess what? Manette is getting threats. And Nancy quickly thinks it's someone in tying it with the previous owner of the studio, which is a windmill. Nouzette, I think is her name. And Nouzette was back in, I think it was Joan of Arc times or something like that. It was the revolutionary time. And basically, actually it was maybe it was World War II? Hold on, I think it was World War II. Pretty sure it's World War II. Let's see here. Okay, there's nothing really. I think it's during World War II because I think they mention German people being their enemy. Um, anyways, so she is kind of like a background person where she's more of she decodes stuff. She'll go around being more supportive rather than on the front lines. And she was one of the people that would decode messages that were encrypted over enemy lines. But the problem is because she needs to keep her job quiet, when she's caught talking with a German soldier, which I think it was von Schrenkert. Anyways, they were friends, maybe possibly in a relationship, and they thought she was being a double agent, and because of her position, she couldn't really give out proof. So it kind of put her into a position where it's just you were a traitor, and eventually it was dropped. But of course, this wouldn't look good on her. And then now more modern days, people see her more as a hero that was put in a bad light. And nowadays, there is a thing that she would possibly have hidden something away from people, and it's questioned about some paintings. So you look around, you go back to the apartment, which is JJ Jingjing or Ling, I think it is, but it's the model for Manette, and she's kind of a big model figure, and Nancy's kind of staying with her, not much with her. There's a hotel slash cafe. I know it's more of a cafe, and that's kind of a person who's more of a TLC slash someone. He's a paparazzi more than anything. He knows around this stuff. He takes pictures for things, and he has an office at this cafe. And he really didn't have much else than kind of like, hey, here's what's going on. There's always going to be a competitor between, I think it was, not Zuzu. Zuzu was the person that's in the catacombs. I'll get to him. But she had a competitor that was a high chance of being the one sending the threats. And it was more of just the background scenes and kind of the previous thing he gives out. Then there is a photographer, Dieter, which is the ex of Manette, who is actually the descendant to Vaughn, the friend slash relationship of Nuzette. And he was left clues and like a house for like stuff that Vaughn gave a hint at what it could be to. And there's also someone who's trying to get a hold of Manette for historical purposes. I think she was mentioned in a previous mystery I think it was Shadow Ranch, very possible. And Nancy gets a hold of her, hey, like, what can you tell me about Nuzette? And basically she's given the last few words of Nuzette, which is another hint at where this mystery goes. So with Vaughn and Nuzette, it's kind of like, okay, here's the clues. There's also a few things you can find around a park, which is kind of like a marketplace. And then you also have to go through several other things like catacombs. We get a hold of someone, I think it was Zuzu, who is this, like, he's somewhat of a convict, whereas I think that's the right words. The catacombs is like, you can see the first layer, just kind of like, here's what it starts out, but once you start getting into the tunnels and all that, it's restricted, it's heavily patrolled by police, and basically Zuzu kind of is like, alright, I can kind of give you a heads up of what to do, and there's stuff that's in there that might help you. I think he is the one who told us about a possible hazelnut, like, locked box, which Nuzette, I think it's her last name that means hazelnut. I sadly already scrapped my pieces of paper, so I can't really go back. And then let's see here, Dieter, the place, and for the most part, that's kind of all of our places, I believe. And throughout, we get more letters, we get a call, we kind of do some small tasks for everyone to kind of get a chance at, talking to other people. It's a lot of favors to talk to other people about certain small clues. And eventually, throughout the small clues and all the little puzzles that was left between Vaughn and Nuzette, that you officially kind of figure out that there's a trail to her last secret to the grave. And you start seeing that more. She was more of, like, you see the decoder part of her, with, like, notes for her from, like, the rest of the resistance. And then you also see, like, her closer to the end. You learn that she was, of course, a friend of Vaughn, but it had nothing to do with the war they were in. And in the end, it just turned out to be, let me try to do this properly this time. It turned out that she had hidden underneath the windmill a bunch of stained glass with a last note that explains that Vaughn and her were just going around trying to protect these pieces from getting destroyed. And she would say that she wanted to mention it, but because of the allegations, she didn't want to mention it because it would have just brought her back into a bad light. But she wanted to at least let someone know because she wanted these to at least eventually see someone be able to put their eyes on these again. And that's just kind of why she kind of, for her last words, kind of explained a little bit of a clue to go on of. And what's funny that you kind of realize is that it has nothing to do with the end of the game. So, spoilers if you haven't seen my gameplay or played this game by yourself. Coming out of that secret passage, you overhear that Minette was getting threats from spies. And these spies were trying to get information through the Queen, which that's a small little thing at the beginning, is that Minette is currently working on the First Lady's dress for a certain event coming up. It's like the World Center or something like that. It's where a lot of leaders and all that are. So basically these spies were trying to implement like circuitry throughout the dress and have like mics and all that in there where they could overhear things that aren't public information and kind of like overhear a lot of stuff and kind of sell off the information and use the information for their own personal gain. So basically, Minette had nothing to do with the thing. Dieter was the only one that was even worried about finding these hidden things. And he basically gave up and gave us the horse and buggy to keep this travel on the Oregon Trail going. But then it's just like she's just there, existing, basically playing the role. And thank goodness I was using a guide, because I would not have thought of to go and buy a book from Marketplace on fighting. I mean, I think for the most part I remembered that in the beginning, like when I first started. I'm like, I remember who it was and what the end up game was supposed to be, but I just couldn't remember how you were supposed to learn about the fighting. And that fighting, by the way, was the dumbest thing, because they're wanting me to focus on this small little letterbox and figure out what noise she was making for it, instead of two pictures showing the first part of the attack, like the reel back for the attack, and then the attack itself, where like instead of doing what the picture said, where like there'd be like a hand and then attack position, she would like reel back and you can barely see what she was doing. Like some were pretty obvious, like there was this one, the bottom center attack was a double-handed one, so that was pretty obvious, and like eventually I started catching on to some of the things, but like the bottom two, and then I think the top and middle center were the ones that just sucked. Luckily, I was able to catch on to some of them. I didn't know if I had a click or not, so I just continued clicking on the second attempt. Luckily, I was able to beat her, but anyways, it's just like, so there's two separate mysteries going on here. The mystery of these painted glass from Nuzette, and then this whole, like, it was an under thing. Like it had yes, it was the main mystery, because who is threatening this lady, but then you like quickly jump onto this railroad of what happened, what did Nizette actually do? Was she actually what they were trying to allegate her to be? And it's just like, what in the world are you thinking, man? So it was two separate things, and it was a little confusing. I was kind of baffled. I'm like, so you had nothing to do with Nizette. Okay. But anyways, that's it really. So it was just during a war was had allegations of being a double agent. Turned out she had, like, the things she was getting accused of had nothing to do with the war, more than she was trying to avoid pieces of work being destroyed by the war. And then, like, those clues dwindling through word of mouth, or like with Dieter, family. And then, like, the whole point of the actual end is just, hey, Manette's getting harassed. It's spies that are just trying to pay her to make a dress to get information. And it's like 10% of the entire game is figuring out about that stuff. You barely touch the office that starts the game out. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. On Friday, we're doing they recently released Vita Carnis, a season 2 episode, and it's of Mimics, and I'd really want to talk about what happened in that one. So anyways, let's get into this. Bye bye.